Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. Well, if you're new here, that means that you might be at a crossroads and you are looking for some direction, or maybe you just need some clarity in your life and you've landed here. Maybe you're curious a little bit about numerology, about how it works and how it can guide you. So, wherever you are, whatever's going on in your personal life, the Living by Numbers podcast will help guide you through that. So, this episode is our August 2025 numerology forecast, and we're stepping from a 7 energy month in July into an 8 energy month in August. And keeping in mind, we also have the universal 9 energy happening all year round, affecting every single one of these months and the energy that's happening in the months. So, let's talk about. Let's just debrief a little bit about July's energy. I like debriefing it because it helps us to make sense of, the theory of numerology. Because, at the beginning of July, we talked about the theory of numerology, how it might be affecting your personal life or your career. But then we need to experience it. And having this little debrief helps us to make sense. So, the 7 energy of July was all about fierce faith. And it might have felt like you were in a bit of fog. You might have felt really tired. You might have felt like a real need for silence or going inwards. Now, the 7 energy, just a quick little recap, the 7 energy pairs data with your intuition. You need the 7 energy takes both in. And there's a lot of integration that happens with those two pieces of those two bits with the 7 energy because it just needs it needs to see what's happening and the data, but it also needs to go inward and reflect about like how you feel about it truly. Because as we know in this world, sometimes what we see isn't true. Sometimes. And that is the invitation for us to go inwards to check in with our inner world, our soul, what we know about life, our own experiences. Like, does that thing actually ring true for me? So, that 7 energy it is movement energy moving forward, but it's also pause and rest. So if you were able, or you were finding yourself doing this pausing and resting, but on some levels actually moving forward, that's a really good example of the 7 energy. This particular July, with the 9 energy on top of it, like encompassing it, it really was asking us for rest and recalibration. Because that 9 energy is about wisdom, it's the end of a cycle, it's breaking cycles. Um, it's having it's assessment energy, being able to look back and make sense of things. You have that wisdom. You've been through that manifestation cycle. You know better. So that's that rest and recalibration energy of July, pairing the 7 and the 9 together. Now, August, with this 8 energy, it's going to be asking for more clarity and to start moving forward. So when we look at the 8, when we tip it on its side, it's an infinity loop. So we've got the infinity loop happening. That's momentum. That's the visual of momentum. But we also have to remember that with the infinity loop and momentum, it doesn't stop at the sweet spot in the middle. It keeps moving. So that's an important part of the 8 energy that we often expect different things of it. Like 8 energy is about abundance. And so we kind of have this expectation. I was like, oh, this is going to be a really abundant month. Not necessarily. It's asking us to look at our relationship with abundance. That's what it's doing. So I want to back up the bus a little bit about 8 energy. 8 energy is about power, it's about authority, it's about alignment. And abundance is in within that, but overarching power, authority, alignment. The 8 energy is about how we use power in our life, in our career, our finances, our relationships. This is a really, really big one. How do we use power? And it's big because as women, we also have experienced the flip side of that kind of power where it becomes power over. I mean, not just women. This planet has experienced that all over the place where we've experienced that power over the bossiness, the controlling aspect of the eight. And so this month, the eight energy is asking us, are you leading your life the way that feels aligned, or are you just kind of managing it? Let's think about in tarot, because numerology and tarot and astrology, they're like the trifecta, right? When you understand numerology, you understand tarot much more deeply. So let's take a look at the eight in the major arcana card, which is the strength card. And in that imagery, you often see a woman with a lion. And so there's this energy, even in the tarot, about power, strength. And my friend Anne Marie often refers to that card as walking with the beast. And again, it starts talking about or pointing to the point about power over, power within, power without, power with other people, just the whole topic of power. Fascinating to me. So let's dig into the high vibrations and the low vibrations of eight because it allows us to see when this eight energy is showing up for us. Now, if you are a ruling number eight, then you likely have a lot of these characteristics. This is kind of part of who you are. Big picture. There's other influences that you have, but big picture, if you are ruling number eight, or if you know somebody in your life that is a ruling number eight, you will recognize some of these characteristics. So, high vibe of the eight, healthy boundaries, aligned, strong leadership. That's like in family, in your community, in your career. Financial clarity, very grounded abundance, strategic generosity, self sourced confidence. That is a big one for me with the eight energy. The eight energy is also about depth and devotion. I notice that a lot of people that are ruling number eights, they're subject matter experts. Whatever they've gone into their career, they have gone all the way in super deep. You know, they don't do surface stuff at all. Like it's not fulfilling for them at all. And so, for those of you that are ruling number eight or in cardology, if you have eight in the card, so I'm actually an eight of clubs in cardology, but my ruling number is 10. So I share both characteristics of the ruling number 10 and the eight of clubs. So my husband's an eight, ruling number eight. So I'm very familiar with the personality and characteristics of eight. I also find that I do attract a lot of eight energy into my life as an eight of clubs. That's my husband. He's a ruling number eight. But the people I work with often have a lot of eight in their code. There's because they're subject matter experts. We kind of get each other's vibes, and I love working with that. Um, what else can I say about the high vibration of eight? It's management energy. So ruling number eight. People often are very good managers. They have a knack for management. Let's talk about low vibration of eight, because this is where it gets us in trouble sometimes or creates a little bit of friction. Over control, big one for eight energy, bossy. Just even think about the shape of the eight. It's kind of bossy, kind of big and bossy. And so with the eight energy this month, you may notice people getting bossy around you this month. That's going to be a button that pokes at people where if they're not, in their own high vibration, they're going to be a little on the bossy side. They're going to be a little over controlling. They're likely, you're going to find situations where there's black and white thinking. Like, you know, that always makes me crazy when I'm having conflict or, trying to work through something and the other person is just in this black and white thinking. Like, we can't find solutions in black and white thinking. Victimhood is a big one for that low vibration of eight. Um, kind of playing the victim when they are truly not a victim. And martyrdom is within that as well. And so, I do see this. I do see this for myself for sure. I can reflect on this when I haven't been feeling great, that I do get into the poor me attitude. And it's okay to have a pity party. Go ahead, have it. Have cake, have some cookies, whatever you want. But there's a time and a place for a pity party. And then that eight energy shifting back into that high vibration of eight energy is like, okay, the eight energy is leadership energy. I know how to lead. What are my next steps? What do I need to do? Fear of being too much. This is so rampant, especially in all my years that I've worked with women. Whether I was an esthetician with my own spa, working with clients, or working with other spa professionals or wellness professionals, there was always this fear of being too much. And with that fear comes the tendency to keep ourselves small, not speak up when we don't agree with something, not stepping up and leading when we know we can and helping. Um, not, if you've got a business, if you're an entrepreneur, not getting on social media and or getting out in front of people to share your message because there's often that fear of being too much. Like I don't want people to think that I'm like I think too much of myself or that like I don't want my competitors thinking that, I've got a bloated ego. That's where that fear of being too much comes in entrepreneurship and absolutely scuttles our success. The same with our careers. If we're afraid of being too much, we're not going to speak up when we have something to say. We're not going to step forward with something when we feel we have a good idea to offer. And and in our families, in our personal relationships, if we feel like if anybody's going to think we're going to be too much, too extra, we tamp down ourselves. And that is and that starts eroding our own personal autonomy, our own personal sovereignty. And if you're not familiar with those terms, sovereignty and autonomy, I urge you to explore what that means for you because when we start doing that work of like, do I truly feel sovereign? Am I truly sovereign in my life? Do I have true autonomy? There's a lot of times where we look at little pieces and realize that I've been holding myself back. I've been keeping myself small. I've been feeling like I've been too much. I don't want to be too much for people. And it's eroded that personal power for me. The last piece about eight and the low vibration, which it's come up for me many times in my life, and I've seen it with all of the women in my life, my friends and my clients, is that, tying your worth to what you earn. That's a big one. Tying your worth to what you earn, or tying your worth to how productive you are. Um, I've seen some social media posts, some reels and TikToks about, like, hey, do you ever feel like if you're kind of just resting, you're just lying on the couch, scrolling through social or reading a book, and, say your kids come home or somebody comes home and you're like all of a sudden you pop up and you feel like you should be doing something? That's one of those places where we've been conditioned to believe that we are not valuable unless we are being productive. And again, that erodes at our own personal power, our own personal autonomy. Now, we also have this nine energy year, highs and lows, kind of poking at this eight energy. So, this influence of the nine energy year, we're almost at the end of a 9-year cycle. So we've had this big cycle of learning and understanding. And the nine energy is literally demanding that you let go of those outdated beliefs, those outdated patterns about success and value and money and power. That's what this month is here for us to do. And you may find yourself in situations, maybe just with your own thinking, where it's like, enough about these old stinking thinking stories. I even catch myself telling myself stories that are not true. And I've been working very hard to catch myself when I start thinking that, or I start telling somebody um, this kind of thing. Like, stop it, Kirsten. It's not really true. It's an old story. So expect that every month for this year, that nine energy is going to be in your face, saying, let it go. Let go of the old shit that is not serving you. The old low vibration of each of these months, let it go. Not serving you. Because in January, we move into a one energy year, and I feel like all of us are going to feel a little bit more like this year has been really intense. And so the one energy is about fresh starts and new beginnings, and it just feels like a little breath of fresh air. But the nine, if we don't clean up with the nine energy, is we're just going to drag all the like crappy stuff forward. And so that's why the nine is like in our face this year about let it go, let it go, let it go. It's not working for you anyways. You're not happy with it when you have these situations, these relationships, these belief systems. Let it go for God's sakes. Just let it go. There's a couple questions I want you to ask yourself. What old version of me am I finally ready to release? What old thinking am I ready to release? And what does success look like now? What could it look like now on my terms? You might not necessarily have answers to those questions, but if you're wondering like how do I move through this kind of stuff, it's just asking the questions and pondering it. And eventually it will start coming to you. Trust me. Okay, so we're in August 1st. This podcast is being dropped on August 1st. And I want to talk about the container of August. So, the container of August is like the first day of the month and the last day of the month. What are those energies holding for the rest of the days? So, August opens up with a nine energy day, August 1st, and a Queen of Diamonds day. Now, the Queen of Diamonds in cardology, she knows her worth. This is why I'm saying that this month is an in your face topic about your power, your personal power, because it kicks off with a nine energy day and a Queen of Diamonds day. So, this is like the divine feminine version of power this month to explore. You're being asked to reclaim your power, not with force, but with truth. There is room for everyone at the table when it comes to power. And we had a great conversation in the Numerology of Business collective with Anne Marie yesterday. And this was one of her points. And when I was putting my forecast together, I was like, wow, yeah, this really is a big message. And that is there is room for everybody at the table. We've been led to believe that there are only a small amount of seats at the table. And we've also been led to believe that those people at the table must be really, really smart. They must really know what they're doing. That is not true. Not true at all. None of those things are true. We don't know if those people are smart. A lot of times they're not. A lot of times they're bullshitting their way through. And I'm talking about in life, in our personal relationships. I'm talking about in our career. So we need to, that's one of those old belief systems. We gotta let it go. It's not even true that there is, only so many seats at the table. This month is about us claiming our seat at the table, claiming our power at that table, at the power table. And it's not about power over, it's about power with and claiming your own power. I get worked up about this topic. Like I feel very, very strongly on the topic of personal power and how we claim it. Probably because as much as I've seemed like in my career and my personal life that I have a lot of personal power, I have also very much struggled with really truly claiming my highest power. So the word sovereignty, in case you struggle with that word and like how to connect the dots and how it works for you, think about sacred self respect. That's sovereignty. Think about calm, clear confidence. That's sovereignty. And knowing your value without proving it. That's sovereignty. I want that for me. I want that for all of you. Because when all of us have that, we come together in a much more aligned, loving, um, connected way on this planet. So that's how we start off the day with this Queen of Diamonds and Nine of Energy. Great message. And August ends with an Eight of Hearts day. So that eight, that eight, repeating number eights is meaningful in numerology. The more numbers, repeating numbers, the more intensity of that energy. So we end the day on an Eight of Hearts. The Eight of Hearts is about influencing through love and aligned communication. The three is joy and creativity, emotional expression. So again, we've got energetic nods to what is this month will be supporting us with. All right. Now I want to talk about and share with you because I always like to make sure that you have practical actionable things to do this month because without making them practical, they're kind of useless. I mean, there's the type of numerology that I practice is Pythagorean, and it is a more practical type of numerology. It's there's other numerology types that are more kind of more spiritual. Like they're just it's a little harder to connect the dots. They're still very powerful, but I do like the Pythagorean numerology because it's so practical, and that's how I kind of started using numerology myself is very practical, like literally looking at the energy of the day. Like I've got a I don't know if you can see it because it's kind of blurred out background, but I look at this calendar all month long to help guide myself through the energies of the month. And so um, that's just like one practical tool of having a little calendar and writing the energy of the day on it. I've got the full moon circled. I've got the double days, like I've got the double 8 days and the double 9 days on here. So I can see where there's this amplification coming up so I can use it practically. All right, let's talk about practical action steps for both career and your personal life. Let's start with your personal life because this is going to support real life clarity and your own personal leadership. Okay, in life, it is time. It is time, my friends, to reclaim your time. That is about power. When we give away our time, we give away our power. We know this when we're burnt out, when we're doing stuff for everybody else except for us. Okay. There's a balance to it. But if we're out of balance, we're out of our power. So reclaim your time. So review your calendar. If you can, remove one or two things that you're doing out of habit or obligation. Those are the two keys for it. Habit, obligation, or it's not aligned with you anymore. Lots of times we're still doing stuff we're like, "Ugh, don't even really like it anymore. It's not." Or even if we're like, maybe we're volunteering for something and you've been doing it for a couple of years and it's not that it's not aligned, in terms of integrity. It's just more, maybe you've got more going on in your life. Maybe your career got busy. Maybe you've got more kids, like all of those things. So we can let go of the things out of obligation. Number two, set a boundary. Set a boundary and keep it. Now, you've heard me say this before, if you've listened to my podcasts, that boundaries are not what you say, boundaries are what you do. So you can tell somebody, stop doing that. Stop doing that, or I'm going to, we can't be friends anymore. And they keep doing it, and they keep doing it, and you keep saying it. It's not your boundary isn't saying, stop doing that, or we can't be friends. Your boundary is actually when the person does it again, you clearly say, we've had this conversation. I don't like this. I'm sorry. We're done here. And you walk away. That is a boundary. So set your boundaries and keep it. Set a boundary. Just pick one for this month. Whether it's around family, social energy, or even your mental space or your mental load, pick one boundary and honor it. Okay. Promise? Pinky swear? Okay, number three, tend to your finances. Because eight is the energy of abundance and momentum, this is a really important month to be serious about your finances, especially where, we kick off the month with the Queen of Diamonds. She's like the divine feminine CEO. She's responsible for her money. She does the right thing. She's got her systems, she's got her structure because she has people to take care of. She has to be responsible. But the divine feminine, like that Queen of Diamonds, isn't super rigid. She's strong in knowing her power, knowing her value, knowing her worth, and also doing the right thing when it comes to money because she knows that's what gets the momentum going for her abundance. Um, Little question. Take a look at your bank account with curiosity, not fear. And where can you feel more in relationship with your money? Where can you feel more in relationship with your money? What does that mean? What that means is just kind of to take a look at, are you kind of disassociated from your bank account? Do you just kind of tap your card and not really pay attention to your bank account? Just kind of, a payday's coming, it keeps filling up and I keep paying. That's like a disconnected relationship with your money. Do you put off paying bills? Or are you paying them on time? One of those things that I learned about as far as bills was to be grateful for your bills, for your utility bills, because you have power. You have energy coming into your house for the stove, for your coffee maker, for lights, for heat. Be grateful that you get to pay your energy bill because you get to have energy. So that's one of those ways to shift that stinking thinking about lack or fear um, into a more kind of personal power aspect with money and abundance. Have the hard conversations. So if there's something that's unsaid with your partner, with your people at your work, a parent, August supports clear communication and respectful communication. And again, this is what leads back to our own concept of power, our own autonomy, our own authority, our own sovereignty. And when we don't have those awkward or difficult conversations, it erodes our personal power. It's true. We know this. You know it intuitively. I don't even need to tell you. Because when you don't say what you need to say that's in your heart, you walk away from that conversation feeling eroded. It's true. All right, let's talk about one more thing I've got to share for life in terms of eight energy. Upgrade a routine. Just pick one small habit that improves your energy, whether that's sleep or nutrition or mental wellness or physical fitness. Pick one thing that upgrades your own routine because it's for yourself. Commit to it this month, get it done. Let me know what you think you should, what you think. I don't want to shit on you, but I'm sure there are probably a couple of places where you're like, oh yeah, I need to clean up those habits. But pop it in the comments. I would love to hear, or shoot me an email what this is bringing up for you, where you need to kind of put some of this energy. Hey, let's talk about career, whether you have a job or you are an entrepreneur. The eight energy is asking you to raise your standards. What would it look like to stop settling in your work life? Start with one change, whether that is raising your rates, whether that is shifting your title, maybe it's your job description, maybe it's just even self-talk. Raise your standards when it comes to what are you settling for in your work. All right. Now the eight energy is management energy. Like they are leaders. They love diving in, going deep. So one of the things this month to do is to take initiative. Whether you have a job or self-employed, there is one place that you can take a step forward and lead. Pick one. Clean up your digital space. Again, Audit your email, your resume, your portfolio, align it with who you are becoming. Again, this is about personal power. Who you were 9 years ago, eight and a bit years ago. Who were you? Who was that person? What was she doing? How was she showing up in her relationships? How was she showing up in her career? How was she showing up for herself? Oh, that's a big one. That was a big one. How were you showing up for yourself 8.5 years ago? And what have you learned about showing up for yourself in 8.5 years? I know I've learned a lot. In fact, it was a couple years ago when I was really struggling. I was very sick with IBS, and I realized that a lot of it had to do with, I mean, I had to learn a lot about my body and kind of, what IBS is and needs. And I had to learn a lot about my nervous system. I had to learn about how the mind body connection is, activating my nervous system. And once I understood those things, then it was a matter of discipline. And one of the big pieces that came out of that lesson for me was that I had been abandoning myself a lot. I had been abandoning myself physically, not by not taking care of myself. And there were aspects in my life that I was also abandoning myself emotionally, not having the hard conversation or the awkward conversation because I didn't want to rock the boat. And all of that came to a point where I remember standing in the bathroom, and I got real close in the mirror and I looked in my eyes and I promised myself I would never ever abandon me again. Never. I had tears rolling down my face, but I promised her I will not do that ever again. I will be responsible. I will take care of her. And so that is kind of one of those big places in terms of personal power, is all those little spots where we have abandoned ourselves. And so at the end of this 9 energy year, we've learned a few things. So what I'm asking you is to, you know, pay attention to who you've been becoming the past 8.5 years, because there's a story about personal power in there for you, a big one. Now, next one, say no to make room for a bigger yes. Back to our personal power, where it's been leaking, where we've been saying too many yeses, which means saying a no to ourselves. So it's time to flip the script, to say no to things that are not aligned, to make room for a bigger yes for you. Now, you may not even know what that bigger yes is down the road, but there's something bigger coming, especially, in 2026. There's this energy of possibilities and new starts and, like these fresh beginnings, these like daydreamy, visionary kind of energy. But if we're full up especially with everybody else's stuff, we still will not have space and time for our own things and what's important to us. And finally, for career, your action step is to ask for what you want. 8 energy, power, autonomy, authority. And I'm not talking about being bossy authority, I'm talking about standing in your power authority, knowing what you need, knowing what you want. So ask for it this month. Ask for the raise, ask for the referral, ask for a different role, ask for more flexibility. Power begins with naming what you need. All right. So if this episode has, got you feeling a little, trust that's not random. Okay. There may have been some, there may have been some things in here today that I've spoken about that really hit you hard, especially about personal power, autonomy. There's still a big topic of money and abundance that I haven't really kind of dug into yet, but I want to later on in the month. But it's all tied to like we can't attract abundance if we are struggling with our personal power. It doesn't work that way. So that's why and how these dots are connected with money and abundance to the power of the eight. So this season, this year might be stretching you, this nine energy year. It's been stretching me big time. And all my girlfriends that I've been talking to, my numerologist friends, um, everybody has got some like big stuff happening this year. So it doesn't mean you're lost. It just means that you're being asked some questions. You're being asked to remember your wisdom this year. You're being asked this month to reclaim your power. And you're being asked to realign or just to finally align what actually matters to you. So if you're at a crossroads, that's okay. We get there. It's uncomfortable. No one likes being at the crossroads. It feels lonely. And what I want you to know is that you're not alone at all. And there's lots of resources in terms of numerology and the energy of the eight to help you dive in a little deeper, because that's what the eight energy wants us to dive in a little deeper. But this is the month for you to get super curious about all of these things and the power of the topic of power, money, abundance. So if you are ready for a numerology reading to understand more about yourself and your own energetic code and how it's actually being affected by all of the universal codes, then you'll definitely want to schedule a numerology blueprint reading with me. It's an hour. You get a reading report after so that you can look back on it and reflect on it. I often go through my reading reports that I've had from other numerologists and psychics because I refer back to them a lot because when we share the information in the reading, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for you to process it, to understand it, to really get it, but you need the notes to kind of go back on and make sense of it and anchor it into a new knowing. So if you're interested in having your numerology blueprint reading done, let me know. I'll send you a link for that. And if you've already had a blueprint reading and you are like weird stuff is happening and you don't know what's going on in your life and you can't make sense of it and you are at a crossroads and you don't know which way to go, then you can book a life or career numerology reading. It's like an hour. We just dig into your code and the situation at hand, and I will help you make sense of it as well as give you practical action steps to move forward on. All right, my friends, that's it for 2 days for our numerology forecast for the month of August. If you have any questions, please reach out to me on the socials or email. It's Kirsten@kirstenfoss.com, and I'm happy to help you make sense of things. Take good care.